Hey guys, welcome to the Premiere Pro Basics overview. I'm just going to go through the UI, the user interface, just go through and explain what everything does, just quickly go through some of the tools for editing, how to set up a project file properly, just to give you an overview. So if you're looking to get into Premiere Pro or editing, this might give you a little bit of an insight on what it's like, or to maybe just show you some things that you didn't really know or understand. Now this is just like a free basic run through. I will have like a full course that I dive deep into some of my edits and why I edit the way I edit, etc. But that's for a later date, so stay tuned for that. Let's get into it. So when we jump into Premiere Pro, this is the first thing we're greeted with. We're going to start a new project. And this is the next screen here, just setting it all up. So I'm going to title mine Tutorial Project Location. Now this is very important where you put your project files and everything, and where it's where the software is drawing information for the project for. So I actually edit off an external SSD, and I recommend people do this. It's just easier because basically any computer or your phone or any device like that, if you fill up the hard drive just with whatever, like it slows the computer, it slows the system down, so your computer's not running as fast as it can because it's got to use up some of its power just to make sure that all that stuff exists. And your computer can actually draw from some of the leftover gigabytes to use as RAM sort of temporarily sometimes, and it can't do that if your memory's full. So it's good to have just your project files on an external SSD. Need to be a fast one though, just to keep it all clean so that my computer is just running as fast as possible. Now, so here we're gonna go here and choose location. And then I'm going to go down to the T7 Shield, which is what I'm using. So I've created a new folder called Tutorial. This is for this exact project right here. Now this is how I set out all of my projects. So I have a folder structure like this. So all of my effects, say if you have overlays or anything, exports when I export clips, the footage that I have from the project I've just shot, music and sound effects. So it's good to just sort of have everything in their own folders. And then if you go and download any new songs or anything while you're editing, you need to go and take it from your downloads folder from your computer and put it into the music folder of your SSD. This just means that your computer only has to worry about one path for drawing, this just means that your computer only has to worry about one path for all of the data in the project. If you then go and drag it straight from your downloads folder into your timeline, into your import, it's now got another path that it's got to reference where that music clip came from. Now it's not going to worry too much for like one music clip, but you start doing that heaps, then it's got multiple paths it's got to keep referencing from. Man, it can get pretty messy. And then obviously you go and try and edit on a different PC, a lot of those files are going to be left on that computer, and you're going to have a whole lot of missing files later on. So it's just easier to keep it all in the same. So I'll just go back here, select that folder, go select folder. So now out my path is the SSDD tutorial. The name of the project is tutorial. Go create. Give it a second to create. It's just because I haven't put my wireless headphones on. Now if I go into the T7 Shield, go to tutorial, now it's created the project file called tutorial. Now, just running through here, this is the basic setup. This is how I have mine set up. Now, if I was doing vertical content, I technically should have my monitor over on the right in that long part, but because I do a lot of screen records, I need the monitor to be above the timeline. It's just is what it is. But basically, you have all of these different panels separated by these black bars, and these are all customizable. So they're all different things here, and I've actually got rid of a lot of them. So you notice that if you open yours, it might have a whole lot more, tabs on them, but I've got rid of all the ones that I don't use. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to the project import bin. So you can either import media by clicking on this, or I usually just have the folder open already. Just shift click these, drag them in, and they should come in. Now I've got the footage files here. So these are the videos I'm going to be using for this project. And if I go to footage in here, open that up, there's those 4 videos. And if you want these videos, these are from my project file pack for people who subscribe to my membership. These are just all the videos that I use for my YouTube tutorials, so you can follow along. So obviously you could come and grab these if you wanted to follow along with this. So yeah, anything you want to import. So if I went and downloaded a music file, I'd come in here and drag it into the music folder, and then drag it into the music folder in the project. That's how you keep the path legit. So I've got music in there. Don't have any sound effects or anything. It's just a basic tutorial. So this over here is our timeline. Now there is no sequence here because we haven't created a timeline. It's just drop media here to create a sequence. So all we got to do is go say drone shot. Now it's created a sequence. It's the same resolution and frame rate as our drone shot. But it's also over here created another file over here called drone shot 1080p. Now this is the sequence file. So if you accidentally go up here to this tab and X out of that, and you don't know where you're, I've done it before where I've just, I don't know where my sequence has gone. I thought my whole life was going to end. It's actually just over here. So this little icon here represents a sequence, and this here represents a movie plus sound. This represents a movie plus sound. If I go to the music, it's just sound. So that's how you differentiate the different file types. So if I just double click on my drone shot, it goes back in, and now my drone sequence is in there. Equally, you could just go File, New Sequence, and create a whole new sequence. Call it whatever you want down the bottom here, but we've already created ours. A good thing to do is actually rename this to Tutorial S, so Tutorial Sequence, and get it out of my footage folder. So what I'm going to do is right click in the space here, go to New Bin, go to create a new folder, and I'll just call it Sequence Footage, and I'll just take my tutorial thing there, and so now all my stuff is separated. This is obviously a small project, but man, goes a long way when you talk about actually organizing your stuff when you've got a big sequence there. So that's the import folder. That's how we set up a sequence. Now, to understand what this sequence is, let's look at some of the things on here. So we've got our timeline marker here. So if I push spacebar, the little playhead is going to start running through. And you'll notice that this here isn't going up like normal. This actually represents the amount of frames per second. So if we click on this, go into sequence settings, or look at it's 25 frames per second. So every second that passes when you push play, there's going to be 25 pictures that are going to get played back every second. So if I scrub forward here to 24 and then go forward one more frame using the directional buttons on my keyboard, it's going to go to 1 second. So 24 frames, so every 25th frame it's going to be 1 second. That's how you know what your timeline sequence is, so you can get timings and stuff. To zoom in and out, I'm using the plus and minus button next to the backspace on my keyboard, or you can just drag this in and out. So I'm going to take another shot, say this tattoo shot. Now this tattoo shot's obviously a lot shorter. It's only a few seconds. This is from one of my tutorials, and yeah, so if I click and drag this out, you notice that my other video layer just snaps to whatever's nearest to it. So it snaps to my playhead, snaps to the other video. If I drag it too far over, you're going to delete that portion of the drone video. So I'll just Control Z. If it's not snapping, that means that you've accidentally pushed S, which is a shortcut key, and your magnet isn't on. So just either turn that on or just push S. If it's off, then nothing snaps. So it just goes past. So make sure your snapping's on. It's a lot more helpful. I'm going to zoom out there. So let's go through what some of these panels mean. So you can see the video up here that's getting played. That's our program monitor. So it's showing what the active timeline is displaying with our playhead. So notice our playhead goes through. It's just playing the video forward and back, and it's represented by which frame. So it's 6 seconds and 16 frames. And this, just wanted to note that this program monitor at the moment is set to 1080p. So think of this as like a window that is 1080 pixels by 1920 pixels, which is 1080. So anything on the timeline is going to be shown in that monitor. And Premiere Pro is a layer-based editor. So if I drag this audio down, move this across, and put this on top, so now the tattoo video is on top of the drone shot. click on that tab, and up here, Effect Controls tab shows all of the controls for a specific layer. So if I click on the drone shot, these are all the effect controls for the drone shot. If I click on the tattoo video, these are all the effect controls for the tattoo video. Now, you can control the position, scale, everything from this effect tab here. So if I take the tattoo transition, so we go up here, position, this one here goes left and right, this one here goes up and down, click and drag. If I go all the way down here, you can now see that the drone shot is behind the tattoo video. That's because it's a layer-based editor. So the moment that playhead gets to the tattoo video, it appears. If we zoom in, go back one frame. So as soon as it comes in, it appears. And now the tattoo video is obviously over top of it. If I drag the drone shot up above it, now I can't see the tattoo video at all because the drone shot is on top. So anything on top in the timeline is in front in the program monitor. But also let's go down here to scale. So I can scale this down to 70, scale it up, rotate, and then go down to opacity, which just basically means like how visible it is. So if I reset the scale, so it's up here, if I drag the opacity down, now I can see through that layer. So I can see through the drone shot and I can see down into the tat layer. Go down to 0, you can't see it at all, back to 100. So those are all the basic effects controls for a specific layer. We'll go through to the coloring. So every layer itself can be colored in a certain way if you want to. Just a basic run through. So this is the basic correction. So if I want to change the exposure to be brighter, you just drag that up. Darker, drag that down. Double click, resets it. Add more contrast. Highlights, make them brighter or lower. Shadows, darken the shadows, you know. So you can basically do whatever you want. You can increase the saturation if you want. This is just the basics overview, so it's just showing you what it does. If I go to the drone shot, I need to select the drone shot to then do, you know, coloring on the drone shot itself. Control Z on that. But anyway, that's basics of color. The scopes here, these are just showing what's on the program monitor. So notice that whatever's happening on the screen from left to right, the Lumetri scopes show the brightness of the image from 0 to 100, and it's showing exactly what's on screen. So if I go on here, this tattoo is dark, so this part here represents the tattoo, which is darker than the things either side of it, and the skin is usually red, so that's the brightness there. Yeah, this one here, a bit more complicated, that's for skin tones. So if I zoom back out, this one here shows audio levels. So if I go to my music, click and drag this onto the audio part of the timeline. So this big bar here represents, so this big bar here separates video from audio. And this is the audio track here. If I open this out, it just shows all the sound waves there, push play. And you'll notice that that is quite loud. 0 up here is clipping, so it's not too bad, but as soon as you see it go to red and start clipping, it's too loud. So quick way to do it is just drag this down to say negative 3.6, so it's going to be minus 3.6 less than what it usually would. And same with anything. This is a layer on the timeline, so you can move it up and down and layer them and whatnot. Now let's move over to these tools. These are the quick select tools. These are the main tools you'll be using, and they all have shortcuts. So if you hover over the symbol, that's the selection tool is V, so you'll be using that a lot. It's basically just like a grabbing tool where you can click, grab stuff, click on the program monitor. It basically just, you know, selects stuff and whatnot. This one here, track select forward. So I'll push a V again, and I'll go and hold Alt and click and drag this. And say I had, you know, a massive timeline and I needed to go and group select stuff, I could just come in here and click and drag and select stuff if I wanted to. But if I only wanted to select stuff from a certain point and this timeline was huge, this track select forward, we can go here and anything in front of these two arrows will get selected, including this audio track, because the audio track is obviously, you know, over here still as well. It's just sort of like a group select thing. Go to ripple edit tool, just click and hold. So the one I actually use is the rate stretch tool. So if I wanted to take this drone shot, I'm just going to move this out of the way. and make this drone shot. This drone shot is about 20 seconds long. If I want to just quickly make it, shorter, so maybe make it 10 seconds long, I'll go to the rate stretch tool or push R and then grab the end of it and snap it there. So now, instead of taking 20 seconds, the whole thing only takes 10 seconds, so it's 2 times faster. And equally, you can just drag it down to there, and now it just goes faster and faster. Obviously, this is an inaccurate way of speeding things up, but it's good for speeding up like sound effects, stuff like that. Go down here to the razor tool. This is like what you use to cut clips, just on a very basic level. So if I lined it up here, notice it's the same thing with the snapping. It snaps to playheads, to where your playhead is, so it's good to line stuff up with your playhead and then cut with that, or you can just go and cut clips wherever you want. Remember to push a V to go to selection tool again, and now you have the drone shot cut up into different segments. So if you wanted to go and drop the saturation on just this clip, and once you get to that, now it's got no color in it, so you can separate clips, whatnot. Just going to undo all that. And also, if you wanted to just shorten a clip, if you've got the selection tool selected, you can just drag this back and this will shorten the clip, whereas the rate stretch tool actually speeds the clip up. So Control Z that. And also, once you use your razor tool, you can cut and you can delete certain parts of clips, delete the space in between, and now you've got a jump cut between those clips. Also, if you wanted to go here and go, I only want my video start here and end here, I'll delete those two and take the tattoo clip and drag it on here. So now, you've just added a cut there. You can cut your videos to a beat, etc. Just clean that up. Then we've got the slip tool. So if I had my drone shot here that was already cut, but I wanted a different part of the drone shot, so instead of moving this up and spreading it out here, and then cutting here, deleting that and moving it back, cutting there and moving it back down, I'll just undo all that. All you need to do is use the slip tool, and you can drag a different part of the clip right in between 2 layers without having to, take it up and whatnot. Don't really use that too much. The pen tool, so with a layer selected, go up here and this can just draw basic shapes. So notice on here it's just created another layer, so I'll push a V. This is the graphic layer. This graphic layer represents this shape. You can scale it up and down and whatnot. This is just another layer. Same thing, I can put my drone shot on top. Can't see it. But as always, drop the opacity. That shape layer is actually underneath it. So nice way to make shapes. Then we have, so I'm just going to delete that. Then we've got the rectangle tool, same deal. Makes a shape, but obviously in a rectangle. And then over here in the effect controls, so they have the same layer effect controls as the videos, but they also have a shape layer effect control panel in here, which you can expand, and it has its own set of properties. So the fill, which is just the color inside the shape, is gray at the moment. You can click on that and change it to, this color. The stroke in Premiere Pro, After Effects, everything, the stroke is just an outline, or if you've created a path with the pen tool and haven't connected it, it's just a stroke. And you can activate that, so now it's created a white outline, and the thickness is 4. You can increase that thickness. So the stroke is just like a path. Shadow, you can obviously create a shadow, blah, blah, blah. So any sort of, shape layer or text layer will have all of these options. And then obviously it has its own transform properties as well, so you can move it left and right, up and down. Then we've got the hand tool. Pretty sure this just lets you drag the timeline left and right. Don't really use that. And then we've got the text tool. So we're going to add text to this video. Make sure your playhead, is wherever you want it to be. Just click on that, and now it's created a graphic layer, and you can type whatever you want. Tutorial. So now obviously this tutorial just comes in on the screen wherever it is. And just like the shape layer has its own effect drop down, and you can go and after you finish doing your words and whatnot, make sure you push V to deselect the type tool. Otherwise you'll just keep adding, every time you click you'll add another text layer inside that. Select tool, and obviously you can go and change to whatever you want. I use this is the font that I use for all my Instagram. It's the font that I use for all my Instagram videos. Bebis Nue. Oh, how do you say that? You can change all the properties of the text. And And if you want to center the text, so every time you create the text layer, so if I delete that and I go to text and create at the bottom left-hand corner here, and just write tutorial. So notice if you wanted to get it centered, just a quick way of doing this, notice the layer properties actually only apply to the layer, not the text. So these are all still back at default 0. If you open the text properties, notice it has its own set of position and scale properties that are random numbers. That's because this is where it is inside the text properties. So if I just go reset that, and because it's on on the left hand side here, so it's paragraph to the left, put it to the middle, and now your text is aligned to the middle. So it's a good thing to know there. So as soon as you add a text layer, you can write whatever you want. Just open the text panel and just go and reset those properties. It's back to the center, and now you have a center text. So that's text properties there. So that's text in a nutshell. And then now we'll just quickly go over something called keyframing, which is a pretty cool concept. It's pretty much in any editing software. So if I drag this back to the start, go and play this. Now, if I wanted to add some movement to this tutorial layer, now you can add this to any layer you want. If I go and say go to frame 10, anything with a stopwatch in Premiere Pro, you can animate a certain effect. So the effect we're animating here is the position of the text layer. So if I click the stopwatch, it's added a keyframe here. This panel here represents the length of that layer. So at 10 frames, we've added a position layer at this coordinate. And I'll go forward to say 1 second later, so 1 second and 10 frames. And I move this layer down. It's added another keyframe at 1 second at 10 frames, and now the value is this. So it's going to go from the original value to 951 over 1 second. So I go back here and push play. 10 seconds, it's going to go from that position to that position. So that's a basic keyframe. So it's moving from X to Y. And then obviously you can do any one of these. So I can go X to Y from here, wherever I want. Scale, it's going to lay a keyframe for scale at 100. Go back out to here, scale it up to 410. So over that time, it's going to scale up to 410. And then it's going to cut into our next clip. So you can obviously get pretty creative with how you keyframe stuff, position, scale, rotation. Now let's go on to effects. So over here in the project part here, I've got the effects tab. Now this is just a quick note that all these panels are customizable. So this effects tab up here, and the effects is turned on, the effects window. All of these other ones I've turned off because I don't use them. But if I wanted to take this effects tab and move it over to here to my timeline panel, this would split the two and create another panel. This one here just adds it to the top of the timeline. Obviously you don't want to do that because you just want to keep your timeline clean. So I'll move it back over here. You can move these to wherever you want. This is just where I've moved mine. And if you can't find a certain tab, just click on the window you want it to go into, go to window and just add whichever one you want to that one. And if you don't know where it is, you just click and drag it over to a different spot. It's totally up to you. So it's good to just customize it the way you want. So I'm going to go to the effects here to add an effect. So I'm going to you can add an effect to any layer in your timeline. So I'm going to go here to the effects tab, and there's a whole lot of presets that Premiere Pro has built in, which are not that good. But I can go and add, say, something like a Gaussian blur, which is pretty standard. Drop it onto the tutorial layer. And now this tutorial text layer, come down into the effects part, has a Gaussian blur effect added to it. So the FX means that this is the panel for that Gaussian blur. Blurriness is at 0, obviously. If I click and drag that to the right, so now if I zoom in with my mouse here, my tutorial word is actually just getting blurred. It looks pretty dumb, but same with anything with a stopwatch. I can click and have it at 0, go forward a certain amount of frames, add the blurriness. So I'll reset this to fit. So you notice that over that time, Now the tutorial layer is blurry. I can add another keyframe to make it even blurrier, and then keyframe it back to be nothing. So this is how you add effects to different layers in Premiere Pro, just quickly. If you want to delete the Gaussian blur, you just click on that and just delete it. But I'll just undo that and keep it on there just for our little video. Basically, in any effect you want, so if you want a warp stabilizer, you just type in warp and it'll come up here. So all of these effects are actually in all of these folders, but it's quite hard to find them, so it's better off just typing it in and it'll just take you straight to that effect. Let's talk about another thing that is quite powerful in Premiere Pro, and that is adjustment layers. So if you go over here, you want to add another thing to put on the timeline, right click here, or you can just go File, New, Adjustment Layer. I usually just right click in here, go New Item, Adjustment Layer. It's going to create a layer that is the same width, height. You can change it whatever you want, but just keep it the same as the sequence. Now it's added this adjustment layer in here. If I click and drag this into Premiere Pro, now all of the effects that we were adding to our layers were just applying to single layers. If we click on our adjustment layer, which we've put in here, I'll just drop these down, and we go and add an effect. So it has all the same properties as a layer does in Premiere Pro. If I move it around, you won't see anything because it's just invisible. It's just like a layer that can hold information or hold effects. It has its own coloring, but any effects that you put on the adjustment layer, it applies it to everything underneath. So if I go and increase the exposure on my adjustment layer, it's going to increase the exposure on my drone shot and my text layer. So this is how you can sort of bulk color grade, heaps of footage that was shot at the same settings, I guess. Then if I go back to my effects and add the Gaussian blur to the adjustment layer, go down to the Gaussian blur, increase the blurriness, it's going to blur out the drone shot and the tutorial layer. So this is important to note that Premiere Pro is a layer-based editor. So anything on top is obviously going to show on front, but any adjustment layers are going to apply everything to everything underneath it. So the tutorial is blurry there. If I take my tutorial layer, put it above the adjustment layer, now the tutorial layer isn't blurry. So it's only applying everything underneath it. So it's good to note there. Now the last thing I'll talk about is nesting. Nesting is a good way to create sub-sequences inside your main sequence. So if I go back to my project, go to the footage, check my another drone shot clip on here, I'll cut that. I'll say I wanted to scale this down. For whatever reason, you've just got two clips, and I want to make a sub-sequence of those two clips. So I'm going to take these two clips, right click, and then go nest. So it's going to create a nested sequence. So I'll call this drone shots. So it's the layer with two drone shots. Now it's going to create a single layer that's actually its own sequence. And you'll see over the left here, it's created a sequence called drone shots. Now it's like a sequence inside a sequence. So if I double click on drone shots, it's opened up drone shots in its own sequence. And it's just those two drone shots that I selected to then go and nest. So I can go in here, and just like adjustment layers, the drone shot sequence has its own movement properties. So if I move this around, it's moving the entire drone shot. I'll just turn this adjustment layer off. So you can move this drone shot around as a sequence. But if I go inside the sequence and take this drone shot, move it down to the bottom here, and then say go here, keyframe the position, move it up to the top, there, so it's created two keyframes. Go back into the tutorial layer, go back, and now that video in the back is moving inside that sequence. It's not moving in our main sequence. So it's good to know how to layer stuff and create subsequences. You can also, obviously, just like an adjustment layer, add a Gaussian blur to that sequence, and it will apply a Gaussian blur to both of those clips because it's applying it to the whole sequence. And equally, you can go into the drone shots, take that top one, apply the Gaussian blur to that. And so it's only blurring that one clip inside that sequence. So It's important to know how sequences work, because once you understand that, it transfers into After Effects with pre-composing, all that stuff. But yeah, then to export our clip, we're going to set in and out points. So push I and then O. And so it's going to export everything inside this little gray area. So at the moment, it's going to export from here to there. So a whole lot of dead space. So you just want to drag this to the left, drag this to the end. And it's going to disregard all of this audio after that point, because we don't want that audio. We just want it to be the length of our clip. So we're just exporting into out. So let's export our cool video, Control M. So one thing you might come unstuck with is that this sequence was 1080p. So this will work for 1080p, because when you open it as default, it's just going to try and export it 1080p. But if you have something that is vertical for Instagram, it's going to export your video with black bars on the sides, because it's going to export it as a 16:9. So just come up here, go down to match source adaptive high bitrate. So it's going to match what your sequence settings were, and then go to location. Now this is where you need to choose your exports folder that you created already, and call it whatever you want. Let's call it tutorial S. Just go to tutorial export, save, open this video tab. So I always, and then go more. Then I always go render at maximum depth, maximum render quality. Then your bit rate is basically how much information is in the video per frame. So just go to like 20 seems to be a bit of a sweet spot, around 20 for me. VBR one pass is fine. And then audio, make sure audio is on, so it's going to export the audio as well. And then the source is in and out, so it's those in and out points you chose, and then just go to export. And this should export pretty quick, so about 4, 3, 2, 1. So that's 3 seconds for my computer. Yours might be faster or slower, whatever. Go into our exports, tutorial export, and have a look at it. Bask in the glory. And that's basically the very basic overview of Premiere Pro editing. I hope you learned something. Stay tuned for a course that probably will be paid, but I will go very in depth on everything in Premiere Pro. You know, how to edit a story properly, how to go from start to finish on a project, how to cut everything down, layer everything, how to nest everything, and layer your sound effects, all that stuff in the full course. But stay tuned for that to come out. But anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.